Wake up this morning, make the mistake of turning on the TV. Nothing but bad news, empty avenues rolling on the screen. Oh, walk to the kitchen and make myself a cup of coffee. Wave at the older man, get into something tame on his balcony. Oh, yeah, we both have been stuck in our apartments for 2 months too long. We don't even get along, but the world just fell apart straight out of the blue. So in my mind I whisper ciao and I take myself to Tuscany, Italy, riding on a Vespa in a sunflower field. Yeah, warm wind blowing and birds are singing in cypress trees. Tuscany, Italy, eating carbonara.
That chill intro that you just saw, that's what I thought what it would be like to take my exams at home, minus the falling on the floor part. But in reality, it is quite different and a lot more stressful than I thought it would be. So in this video, I'm going to share with you guys how I approach my exams. So what do I do in a few hours before the exam, and then what do I do with my 24-hour exam time. At Cambridge, they've decided to give us 24 hours per exam. We have to answer less questions than usually, and it's open book, so you can refer to any notes or Google anything, whatever you want, and you just have to hand it in within 24 hours. But despite the fact that it's open book and that we have a lot more time, they are grading it as if we would sit it in the exam hall without our notes and under much more time constraints. So it is actually a very, very nice way to grade the exam, and they did that because they're aware of the fact that we're in a pandemic. So thank you so much, Cambridge. And yeah, here's how I approach my online exams. In the morning before an exam, I just get up as usually, and then I make sure to fully get dressed because I feel like PJs just scream, you know, sleeping, and I want to tell my brain we're gonna work today. Then I open up my laptop and I just look up any last minute questions that I still have. I usually wake up and I just have this one little thing which usually will not come up in the exam anyway, but it just bugs me, so I just quickly look it up to make sure that that isn't a thing that's gonna make me nervous in the end. Once I'm done with that, I go over my exam checklist. So basically, do I have all the items that I'm going to need for the exam? So do I have my pens? Do I have my highlighters? And then also just some very basic things like, do I have my exam guidance sheet? That's something that my university issued, and it basically just contains instructions on what to do before, during, and after the exam. So for example, where do you find your exam paper? So that's something to always have near you during this exam. Then also, do I have my laptop and is it charged? Because otherwise I will not be able to write that exam. And then of course also, do I have my notes? So my revision notes, I write them in GoodNotes, and I just keep them on my iPad, and I just want to have them near me for reference. But to be honest, at that point, all of that in those notes should be in my brain anyway. But yeah, if you want to double check something, it's useful. And then of course, do I have my statute book? A statute book is just basically legal texts that you're allowed to bring into the exam normally. Now it's an open book exam, so that doesn't matter so much. And then of course my normal notes, which I use for looking up things. So I just take out the folder and then I make piles of different notes on my bed. The reason I make these piles is because every pile is a different topic on the syllabus. So every supervision at Cambridge basically represents a topic on the syllabus. So it's super easy to just organize them. So I put my reading notes, my supervision notes, any questions that we talked about, as well as lecture notes into these piles. And I have these different piles because then I can just quickly go and look something up regarding that topic. And then I also have all my written work there if I want to see what was criticized about structure or something. And yeah, that's pretty much what I do. These are just for reference later. And yeah, then it's basically time to wait and get that exam paper. I usually draw a little bit in that time because there is nothing I can do at that point in time to, make my performance in the exam better. So I just try to distract myself a little bit and relax before the exam. I also make sure that I get a good lunch so that, I can think well during the exam. And that's pretty much all you can do at that point. I kind of hate that our exams start at noon because it's a horrendous waiting period, which is just a little bit of torture. The exam paper is here. Once I finally get access to that exam paper, I then just quickly download it onto my laptop, and then I just open it up as a file and then print it. The reason I print it out is because I prefer to write on the paper itself. For me personally, that's better for planning, but everybody has a different preference. So yeah, But then I just go over the different questions, I just quickly skim them, and then I take out a pencil and I just mark any questions that I would like to answer, and I annotate a little bit just to see whether I actually have some good arguments for that question and whether I know what the question is asking. I give myself a total of 40 minutes for this, which honestly is very, very generous. I don't think I actually ever needed those 40 minutes just for picking questions. I'm not really outlining here, I'm just making a few notes just to see whether this is really the right question to pick. And at the end, I should have picked 3 questions. And yeah, 40 minutes is very generous for this. I usually end up using 20. And then it is time to write essay plans. So personally, I write very, very extensive essay plans for these online exams because we have the time. So I think it's worth doing. So I have a section for my introduction. I always make sure that I have all of the authorities that I'm referring to there. Then I have all my arguments there and what they're supported by. And then of course also my conclusion. So you can see this is a very long essay plan, but you will thank yourself later for this when you are writing the essay itself. And while writing the essay plans, I'm also referring to these different piles of notes, just if I want to double check something. And yes, I double check a lot, and that's why I give myself 1 hour per essay plan. But I think it's worth doing because it's an open book exam, so you have the chance to do that, and I think that is a great thing. So once I've written my 3 essay plans, so 3 hours later, I then take a break and I usually read a little bit in a book. Personally, I prefer to read at that point because reading is something that, for me at least, it makes me more awake than watching a TV show or something. So I prefer to do that. And of course, lots of snacks because it's exam season, you deserve it. After a little over an hour of a break, I then go back to my laptop and then it's time to actually start writing these essays. Now, personally for me, writing the essay itself is actually super easy because my essay plans are so extensive that I largely just need to copy and paste and then turn it into a sentence. So there is really not much work for me left to do. So I give myself 1 hour per essay. It's absolutely enough. So after the first essay, I usually go upstairs and I just get some dinner with my family because by that time it is usually already evening. And yeah, then it is time to get back to the next essay. Once again, just an hour based on the essay plan. Since my essay plans are so extensive, writing the essays themselves is really not that big of a deal for me. And then after I wrote my 2nd out of 3 essays, I then usually get ready to go to bed because I'm someone who doesn't work well in the evening, so I just prefer to go to bed early instead.
The next day.
The next morning, I then still have 1 essay left to do. We usually have to do 3 questions, so I then just open up my laptop again and pull up the last essay plan and just write that essay really quick. Since the essay plan was already written, there is really not much work to do, so it's absolutely fine if you leave it to the next day because, well, the work is pretty much already done. And once that essay is written, once again in an hour, then I go and allow myself to watch a TV show. I usually give myself a 1 hour break here just to, let my brain wander and just not think about that exam. I'm currently watching Shameless. It's a quite good TV show in my opinion. So I just give myself an episode of that. And then I go back to my exam answers and then I just look over them again, correct any grammatical errors, and of course anything like if something has to be underlined or italicized, things like that. So for example, for me in law, I always underline all my authorities, whether it's statute or case law, just to show my examiner here I cited that. And of course, I'm also checking my word count because we're now up against the word count since they don't want to read 10-page essays, which is a very real possibility if you give students 24 hours for an exam. So yeah, I just check that all the formalities are correct, including the font, things like that, and then I export that to a Word document. I write my essays in a Pages document because I find Pages a lot more convenient on a Mac than Word, but I have to hand it in as a Word document, so I just export it as that, and then it's ready to just be submitted. So I just go to my submission portal, and then I always double check that it's really submitted, because it's a bit weird because when you first submit it, it's just saved as a draft, so you have to then actually submit it again. So yeah, just really make sure your online exams are actually submitted. And yeah, that's how I approach my online exams. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Have a nice day. Bye!